You should be on page 41 in your notes packet. Today we're going to learn how to identify angle relationships. We're going to start with complementary angles. Complementary angles are two angles whose sum is 90 degrees. Well, if their sum is 90 degrees, that means that they add up to 90, so they create a right angle together. These two angles in this first example are complementary because if I added 60 and 30 together, I would get 90. So I know that these two angles are complementary because they add up to 90 degrees. In the next example, it tells me that these two angles are complementary. I know that because it tells me here. Also, I know that because there is a box here which tells me that this is a right angle. So when you see this box, you know for sure that you have complementary angles because they equal 90 degrees. If you are not told that they are complementary, or you do not see this box, you cannot assume that they are complementary just because they look like they might be. But in this case, we know that they are. So if we want to find the measure of the missing angle, since I know that this is x and this is 62, but together they equal 90 degrees, I can subtract 90 minus 62 to find out what x equals. When I do 90 minus 62, I get 28. So the missing angle measure here is 28 degrees. We also are going to work with supplementary angles. Supplementary angles are two angles whose sum is 180 degrees. Since their sum is 180 degrees, that means that together they create a straight line. Anytime you have a straight line that has a ray, such as this or this coming out of it, that creates more than one angle, you know that those will be supplementary to each other because together they have to equal 180, since together they make a straight line. In the first example, we know that these are supplementary, first of all, because there is a straight line, so we know that together these should equal 180. We also know that they are supplementary because if we add 120 plus 60, we get 180. So we know for sure that these are supplementary. In our next example, we see that these two angles are supplementary, which we know because they are on a straight line. So what is the measure of the missing angle? Well, if I know that together both of these equal 180, and I know that this one is 130, I can subtract 180 minus 130 to get 50. So that means that the missing angle measure is 50 degrees. Another type of angle that we will work with a lot are vertical angles. Vertical angles are two angles that are formed by intersecting lines. These angles are also called opposite angles because they are located across from each other. Now, the most important thing to know about vertical angles is this, which is if two angles are vertical, their angle measures are congruent. So congruent is another word for equal, but we use the word congruent when we discuss angles and triangles and things like that. So any geometrical figure is considered congruent. The symbol for congruent has this little symbol over an equal sign. So when you see this, this means congruent. Now for this, we're going to name all of our vertical angles. Well, I know that this angle right here is opposite of this angle. That means that they are vertical. But how do I name them? Well, an angle should be named with 3 letters. So I'm going to start with angle. It goes from C to O to B. The vertex should always be in the middle. So angle COB is vertical or congruent to angle AOD. Now, I know that they are vertical to each other because they are opposite. And this symbol says congruent. I know that they are congruent because all vertical angles are congruent or equal to each other. Now, another set of vertical angles is this angle to this angle. Well, this angle starts at C, then goes to O, then A. So this is angle COA. And it is congruent to this angle over here. And this angle is B to O to D. So it is congruent to angle BOD. Now, in this example, it asks us to determine the missing angle measure and find the value of x. Well, I know right here that this angle is equal to this angle because they are vertical. So if I need to know what x is, then I know that whatever 2x plus 6 is, it's equal to 96 because these are equal to each other. So then all I would need to do is solve this equation. Well, I would subtract 6 from both sides. These would cancel to leave me with 2x. 96 minus 6 is 90. Then I would divide by 2 on both sides. These would cancel, and 90 divided by 2 is 45. So for this, x equals 45. Now, adjacent angles are not used as much, but adjacent angles are two angles that share a side and a vertex. So for this, I see that I have one large angle, which is CAD, but it's split up into two smaller angles. Well, that is angle CAB and then angle BAD. So those two angles are adjacent to each other, which I know because they share this side, BA, and they share this vertex, A. Now let's look at these angles. I want you to determine whether each of these angles are adjacent, vertical, complementary, or supplementary. For number one, those are adjacent because together we don't know that they equal 90 or 180 because if this angle right here would make them supplementary if this was part of it, but it's just these two together. So we know they don't equal 180 and it doesn't look like they equal 90 either. But they do share a side right here and a vertex right here, so they are adjacent. For number two, those angles are vertical because they are opposite of each other and they're formed by intersecting lines. Number three is another set of adjacent angles. Number four is supplementary angles. I know that because they are on this straight line, so I know that this angle, when added to this angle, will give us 180 degrees. For number five, these angles are adjacent. For number six, these are supplementary. So this is kind of hard to see, but you see this one straight line, and then you have rays going out from the top, but also on the bottom. So we're actually looking at the bottom here, and there's only two angles, and together those make one straight line, which means that these are supplementary. For number seven, those angles are vertical because they are on top of each other. For number eight, these angles are complementary. We know that for sure because if we add 55 plus 35, we get 90. Now for number nine, we don't actually know what x equals. This looks like it could be a 90-degree angle, but there's not a little box here that tells us that this is 90 degrees. So because I don't know for sure that this is complementary without being told, I have to just go with the fact that these are adjacent. Now, if I had been told that together they equal 90, or if I had been told that x was equal to 15, then I would know that they are complementary. But because they just look complementary, that doesn't mean for sure that they are. Now I want you to answer 10 through 15. Now for these, there could be various answers, but some acute vertical angles are CGD and EGF. Because when I look at CGD, that's right here, and it's opposite to EGF or FGE, so right here. These are opposite of each other, they are vertical. They are also acute because these are clearly smaller than 90 degrees. Now two obtuse vertical angles would be FGC and EGD. Well, if I do FGC, that's from here all the way to here. And then EGD is from here all the way to here. Well, these are obtuse, and you'll see that this is opposite to this, and they are congruent. Now, there are lots of different pairs of adjacent angles. I chose FGA and AGB, but there are a lot of different pairs that you could have chosen. Third teen says name a linear pair. Now, when you see that word linear, that means a pair that makes a line. So FGE and EGD together form a line because if I look at FGE, that's right here, and then EGD is right here. Well, together they make this one line that goes from F to D. A pair of complementary angles cannot actually be found from this. So there might be something that might look to you like it's complementary, but you don't actually know any angle measures here, and there is nothing that shows you that there is a right angle. So for this, we would say there are no complementary angles that we can see. An angle that is supplementary to FGE is EGD because, again, together, both of those make a straight line.